flavor for your ear. Epic Spotlight. Putting the spotlight on positive goings on the real people that have chosen a real path. The who's, the whys, and the hows are being shared and given to.
And we're back, and we got another one. But before we get going, we got to take care of some housekeeping notes. This episode today is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, refinancing, or investing, call Epic today. That's 708-905-5300. That's 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. Now on with the show. Today we have Larry Anthony. He's a two-time U.S. Armed Forces veteran. Larry served in the Navy and the Texas Army National Guard with deployment during the Iraqi Freedom Campaign. He holds a bachelor's in political science and history with a minor in Arabic from SMU and a JD from UNT Dallas College of Law. With over a decade in the legal field, Larry has mediated over 100 cases and is a dedicated advocate for convert care in the Muslim community. He's a member of multiple prestigious mediation organizations and brings a wealth of experience from his military, academic, and legal career. Beyond his professional achievements, he is also passionate about community service, volunteering his time to support various local initiatives and mentor young professionals. Welcome, Larry.
Thanks, Dante. Thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate you joining on. And before we even get going, I appreciate the service that you've provided this country. Just want to
Thank
say
you.
thank you. Yeah. My dad was in the Army, so I always have allegiance to military.
All right. Very good.
Can you share just some of the experiences, obviously, that you've been through, just being in the Navy, being in, as far as National Guard and just everything that you've gone through?
Sure. I mean, I got about 8.5 years of service under my belt. So I was in the Navy for 3.5 years. I got a 6-month early out. I was under the Clinton administration when they were downsizing the military. And then, I went back to school for my aircraft technician license. I did that for a little while. I had a 7-year break in service and I joined the Texas Army National Guard in 2003. I was activated in 2005, 2006, around there, for the Iraqi Freedom Campaign shortly after a couple years after 9/11 when we were during the initial invasion of Iraq, and I served there. I got out and I went and pursued my higher education. Just like you said, I got my bachelor's degree from Southern Methodist University here in Dallas, Texas. And I went on to get my Juris Doctor here at the UNT Dallas College of Law. As far as my military experience, I've been all over the map, really. I mean, I did a Westpac, cruise on an aircraft carrier, working on an aircraft, specifically F-14s, the Tomcat, Top Gun kind of thing.
Nice.
And, so I've been all over the place, mostly on the Far East, Japan, Singapore, Thailand, of course, the Persian Gulf, and so on and so forth. So I did that quite a few times, and then I got out. As far as the military, I think that my biggest takeaway from the military is that sense of discipline that anybody gets when they come out, as well as you have that sense of camaraderie that you built with your buddies that you served with. So that was my big takeaway from the military. Of course, I wasn't a big fan of the Iraqi Freedom Campaign as far as the invasion in Iraq. But it is what it is. I know a lot of buddies that got out, and unfortunately, some who got hurt, and some who lost their lives. So that's unfortunately was part of the bag. But other than that, I feel the military was a good experience. It put that sense of discipline into me and that work ethic, and to persevere and to charge. So charge forward on things. So I'm thankfully it worked out for me.
Yeah, it definitely did. I'm curious, just obviously with that background, what really steered you to, the legal sector?
Well, that didn't come till later. I guess that as far as the legal sector, I guess I felt that was the niche that I felt like I could probably do the most good in, because I tend to have a very analytical mind. And so I thought that was the avenue that would probably best suit, this kind of skill set that I had acquired and that I was looking to foster and grow with. So just happened to be the natural, organic way of me of doing things. So no other reason. That I didn't have any family members that were in the legal field. I'm the first one to do so. So I felt that was kind of my niche, my thing. So I went for it.
That's awesome. And can you, just describe really for the audience, just what is arbitration and mediation? Like, what kind of goes into it?
Right, arbitration mediation is unique, is a unique thing. It's starting to grow considerably within the legal field as a means of parties and people, individuals to, or organizations to handle their disputes instead of having to take it all the way through litigation. And the court and the legal process is moving towards having that become the mainframe of handling disputes and having these settled outside of court. So mediation, arbitration, which tends to be the bigger two of the banner of ADR, which is alternative dispute resolution. So mediation is merely a means for parties to come together to kind of come up with proposals to resolve their conflict and put it on paper and have a mediated settlement agreement, which that's the binding side of mediation, or it can be non-binding where the parties just verbally come to agreements. But the role of the mediator is a third party facilitator that just facilitates a means for the parties to come together and hopefully come to some resolutions in regards to the issues that they're having, whether it be through marriages or divorces, organizational disputes, business disputes, whatever have you. Any kind of dispute, you can have it handled in ADR, landlord, tenant, the whole 9 yards. So there's not, as long as we're human beings, there's going to be disputes. So mediation has that niche that, that people can come together with someone who has no bias on either part of either side of the party, that can come and try and hash out and knock out some resolutions for the parties to agree with. Sometimes it's usually a compromise. They have to come and meet in the middle. I always tell my clients that it's not about win or lose, and I tell them that it can be a win-win where you may not get everything you want. You can be able to get something, and you may have to give up a little bit, but in the way you'll meet in the middle, and we work best to try and come up with a compromise that the parties are both happy with and that'll sign off on. As far as arbitration is concerned, it's a little bit more of a formal process, but it's still meaning it's formal in that it acts as a court outside of court. That's kind of how I put it. But it's still informal, that the parties don't have to necessarily be held to certain stringent civil procedure rules or legal rules that they had to follow that they would have to do in a normal court setting. So you can forego all of that, and but at the end, you're still having the arbitrator who acts kind of like a judge, where the parties, waive their right to have their case heard in court and have an arbitrator rule on the matter, and it's as binding as a judge would have ruled on the matter. So the parties, just like anything, they would bring their evidence, they'd bring their arguments that they want to present, and the judge or the arbitrator will look at the documents, hear the arguments if the parties choose to have oral arguments on the case, and will come up with an award, which is called an arbitration award, which will be a ruling on the matters that they presented to the arbitrator, and the arbitrator will make a ruling, and it's up to the parties to have the arbitration award confirmed as they submit it in court. And 99.99% of the time, the courts will uphold the arbitration award unless there's clear signs that there's been, bias, duress, or coercion on that part. But courts normally don't like to overrule those, and then it would be, what's the purpose of having arbitration if it's just, I'm going to of course, you're going to overrule it every time. They'd rather have it taken care of and just confirmed in the court, and it's legally binding, and the courts would have to uphold on it as on any legal order that would be submitted by the court. And if a party breaches that order, or that award, it's considered to be in contempt. So that's kind of how arbitration works. But it's a faster process, cheaper, of course. You don't need to have attorneys. You can have an attorney if you so wish, but it's not necessary. You can go in pro se, what we call going, flying solo in that regards. So you don't have to be represented unless you choose to do so. But there's lawyers that deal with arbitration and mediation all the time, and some who have actually made it part of their practice that's all they handle. But it's just an easier and more streamlined process than having to go through the litigation in the traditional court setting, where it takes a year or 2 years to have it resolved and to be put on the court's docket, where your case can be reset so many, often in arbitration, you can get it handled within whatever the timeline is, and, and the type of issues that are need to be resolved, you can get it handled within the short amount of process and a lot more cost efficient.
Do you find that most of the clients that come to you are referred from the courts? Are the courts really pushing them to you, or are they looking for you directly?
People are looking for us directly, so it's more of an ad hoc. We're still working, I'm still working to get into to have the courts tap us, but we're not there yet. I'm still pretty new as far as the business is. We're only about almost 2 years into this, but we're really starting to ramp up and getting really busy. So eventually we want to get out and have the court have us appointed, but we're still working on that. Right now it's at an ad hoc basis, so it's people referring cases to us and people coming to us on, finding us out on their own.
Got it. And then obviously both parties would have to agree to this, to this situation. Hey, we're going to mediate with
Exactly.
this. Got it.
Yeah,
And
because
then,
both parties have to be in agreement. You're correct.
obviously, if you do mediation, hey, we go down, let's say I have a business partner and we don't see eye to eye and we want to cut ties and we decide to go to mediation. If one party is not happy with, what you've kind of made a decision on, he can continue to obviously go down the path of maybe going to court per se, or he could seek another mediator, or how does that work?
Well, if the deals is that once they've come to at any time during the mediation, they can either party can stop the mediation and leave the session. But once they entered into something in writing, they're held up to that writing as if it's a contract. So if either party decides that they don't like what they have, it's too late. You signed on to it, and you can hold the other party's feet to the fire. It's like, well, we mediated this, you signed it, you didn't have any issue when we were going through the process, and now all of a sudden you want to back out. That's considered a breach. And the
Right.
other party can seek, can either have the court uphold and say you need to follow it, or the other party can seek, monetary damages in that regards. It
Got
holds
it.
up like a contract.
Now, how do you stay even keeled? Obviously, maybe you hear a story and you kind of feel, bad for one particular party. How do you kind of stay even keeled just in your position?
Well, I mean, that's the beautiful part is because you don't have any stock in it. So, I mean, you hear that you just have to be objective. It's sometimes it's difficult, but that's why you hear both sides of the story. And sometimes we use a tool which is called a caucus, is where we divide the parties into both rooms, and we feel that it is more advantageous to hopefully come up with some form of agreement with them being separated instead of together. And sometimes we can get a little bit more of a full story what's going on than they were able to share if there was a joint session, meaning that they were both in the same room going through the process. So there's a number of tools that we can use. I personally haven't found, I may feel one way about one party and then come back and it's like going, it's not what I thought. This is this way. So, I mean, you try and set your personal feeling, any feelings that you may have had aside, and you try and look at it as objectively as possible. At the end, it's not about choosing one side over the other. It's trying to find a ways to find a balance or a medium between the two.
I always felt like there's always three sides of a story, right? It's my
Right.
side, your side, and what
Truth.
actually really did happen.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So
uh, and-
you have to kind of discern that, and that helps with my business partners that we both co-mediate. Sometimes I do mediations on my own as well as he does, but when we do co-mediate, we bounce things off each other just to check each other and see what our feelings are about this, that, and the other, whatever the issue may be, or how we feel about the party. Sometimes we may feel about something and then go, "Wow, I didn't know that was," and then we find out another issue that something came up during the mediation that we were not privy to, and so that kind of flips things on its head. And so we gotta again, and you still have to find a happy medium between the two, because in the end, it's about not trying to twist one's arm over on the other and say you better do this or else. But every once in a while, we have to reality check the parties, and it's like, "Well, look, if you don't agree, you're gonna have to handle this in court, and the courts it's a 50-50, and this is how we've seen how the courts have ruled on such issues. So you may not exactly like, it's best to come up some kind of compromise now and just get something that the court hands down and you don't like it at all."
exactly. Now, as far as mediation goes, is it state specific, or are you able to help people in Chicago or people in Denver or people in
Sure.
Florida? How does that work?
We can, so the beautiful part of ADR with that is alternative dispute resolution with mediators and arbitrators, is that we're not pigeonholed to one state or the other. Most of the states have very broad guidelines in regards to how they do this. They just require that you have some type of training, and you can cross state lines and fairly easy. We've handled cases in New York, we've handled cases in Florida, Kentucky, Missouri, Illinois, and Chicago, particularly Oregon, the whole 9 yards. So it's not, we're not confined to any state borders. We can fairly practice anywhere across the country, as long as, we find that we're able to meet their requirements. And for the most part, we do. The requirements are fairly low bar, as long as you have take some training from an organization that would be considered reputable.
I'm sure they got CE for you as well, continuing
Yeah.
education.
Oh yeah, I do that. It's not required, but I like to stay on top of what's going on, because just like with anything in the legal field or anything with things change in regards to this type of practice, just like you'd find in any other legal field or the medical field. You have to stay on top of trends and how the courts see things or have ruled on certain things, how certain cases have been decided, and what certain tools are being used now for mediation or arbitration. Interesting, there's been more hybrid models coming out in regards to mediation arbitration, where it'll start off in mediation, and should we reach an impasse on any of the issues that we went through, the parties can trigger us to change hats, and we become arbitrators, and we arbitrate those issues. And so thus completely skipping out, taking it out of the court system whatsoever. So whatever we've mediated on and agreed on during the mediation, that'll be in the mediated settlement agreement, and whatever issues that the parties have decided that they want arbitrated, those will be on an arbitration where then everything is taken care of there and doesn't even have to go in front of the court. So the ADR, and then what's beautiful is that the ADR process is changing, and the type of disputes that are being handled is becoming more broad. So there's a lot of wiggle room and a lot of it's a very dynamic field for sure.
Definitely. And would you say that you have a particular niche that you focus on as far as what people do call you on more than
Right, well,
others?
Sure. I mean, right now unfortunately it's divorces. We do, that's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately.
True.
I remember that we were looking at the statistics for divorces in the country from 2023, and we were looking at how we were looking at the divorce rate as of February 2024, and the divorce rate for 2024 was looking to exceed it just within the month of February. And it was already 2/3 up the way of beating 2023's divorce rate. So
Wow.
it's just, yeah, it's crazy. So it is what it is. We just try to make it as easy and seamless and peaceful as possible for the parties, instead of having to go at each other's throats during litigation, saying, look, either way. And what's interesting is that a lot of courts are now mandating that the parties go through mediation first before they even come to trial, with the hopes of trying to get everything worked out so they don't even have to come to trial in the courts. Even the
Which is a
media,
good thing.
judges won't even look at a case. They'll go, have you gone to mediation yet? They'll say, no, Your Honor. They go on, I order you to mediation. Choose your mediator, and then come back to me if you haven't been able to work things out. So the judges want y'all to work, want parties to work things out.
What are some of the issues? Just obviously what you've heard in divorces. Is it about financing, and it's about
It's all about the money. It's all about the money. You think it's about kids too. It's to some degree, but in the end, it's all about the Benjamins, man.
unfortunately? But I can imagine. Obviously, that's what we hear. Obviously, over here, we always hear that, when divorce comes, it's just about mismanaging money or money situations that really get people into the wrong path.
Yep.
So I would say, Larry, how did someone get a hold of you if they need to get in contact with you for a mediation?
Sure, they can contact me at my number, and I'll give that to you. I don't have it memorized. My business number, which is, sorry, I got to pull it up, actually pull it up.
No worries.
It is, my business number is 682-325-7238. You can also email me at info@iams.llc. You can also visit us on our website at www.iams.llc.
And obviously, if they have issues, if they're in a different area, it's not a bigger deal. We can do just like we're doing
Not
today.
at all. Exactly.
Awesome.
And we do virtual and in person, we do. So it's COVID opened up some doors in that regards for sure.
Definitely did. Well, Larry, I appreciate your time today. It was very insightful, just introducing me to this world that you're in, and I wish you the best of luck with your business, and have an epic day.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Dante.
All right, take care.
Bye.
On the real people that have chosen a path. The who's, the whys, and the hows are being shared and given to you. Epic Spotlight.